All right, so the first project of this week was a workshop, and I was contracted to film the seminar as well as get some B-roll shots to create a short highlight reel. And so that's me running around, well, not running around, but moving around and capturing B-roll on gimbal. And I don't know if you can see in the on the right, right beside the windows, I have a camera who's focused on the speaker, and then I'm going around capturing B-roll of the audience and people who are participating and speaking. For the camera on the tripod, that is the Sony ZV-E10 Mark II, and that was just shooting in Cinetone at, I think I was shooting at 1080p because that was what was required. And on the gimbal is the Sony FX30, and shooting at 60 frames per second so we can slow things down if needed. And yeah, that's pretty much the setup for this shoot. On this, in the second session, they kind of switched to a round table kind of discussion where the speaker is asking each one to share their story and share some of their experiences in the business that they are in. And so this is the way I set it up was basically Sony ZV-10 shooting directly at the speaker, who's the host, and then on gimbal I had the FX30 just sitting on the table, sending a wireless feed to the switcher, and I'll show you that right now because I was recording live and I didn't want to have to be doing everything in post-production. So I was sending both cameras to the A10 Mini Pro, recording ISO feeds but also recording a live feed, and then cutting in between both shots. So the FX30 was on gimbal, I was wirelessly controlling that, moving it around to whoever was speaking, and that basically did the job. After they wrapped up this session, they had to leave this venue to the client's home, because it was, as you can see, it's a small group, but that room was actually booked for the time that they were actually running over time in that room, so they had to move to the client's home, where we kind of just had to set everything back up and continue the session. So that was this client. This client actually phoned me on Production Hub, and this is my second gig with them, and he's already booked me for a third event that they're going to be doing. So that's pretty exciting. So Production Hub definitely will pay off. It just sometimes, takes some time. Second job for that week, it was the day after, 2 days after, and it was a real estate conference, and I was contracted to do 3 things, really and truly. And I think, to be honest, I undercharged for those services, but I brought in my wife as an assistant videographer, and she was helping me out. But the 3 things I was contracted to do was, one, as you can see, me walking around doing the capturing B-roll of the audience, capturing a highlight reel type of content, and then the second thing was actually streaming the speakers, streaming what was happening on stage to Facebook. And so I had a camera on tripods at the back of the room, capturing video and audio streaming into Facebook. And so that's where the A10 Mini Pro again came in. Very, very clutch.
So it'd be great to learn a little bit from you about, maybe, do you love it, hate it, believe in failure? Do people need to feel failure to succeed?
Absolutely. I mean, that's the first part of success. Any new.
The next thing I was contracted to do was to record podcasts. So they had a separate room, kind of a breakout room type thing. And in that room, they were recording podcasts off the speakers. And as you can see here, I have the Sony ZV-E10 Mark II, 16mm lens capturing the podcast, and then I just had the DJI wireless mic 2s recording into the camera. So after the conference itself, they had happy hour, which is pretty common between conferences, I'm finding. And so people were just networking, chatting, hanging out, having drinks, and so on. And so I was capturing another highlight reel for the happy hour itself. 2 days after that shoot was another shoot, and so I was working 3 days out of that week. This was a client interview where the director or the producer was actually streaming in from Zoom, through Zoom, and they were the one interviewing the person. He's a doctor, and they wanted to capture that interview in 4K, two cameras, typical, nice lighting and everything. So we had the Nanlite 500B as the key light, and the Nanlite 60B as the hair light that was running off V mount. So the 500B is going through these reflector umbrella reflector type diffusion. I really love using that just because it is so soft, such a nice light source, because it's acting like a book light, where the light is bouncing on a reflector and then coming through a soft diffusion, and so it really does well in terms of diffusion. And so setting up both the A cam, B cam, and then setting up the laptop to send that feed to the through Zoom to the producer. I think that setup took about 40 to 45 minutes, and one of the things I'm really working on is making my kit as efficient as possible. And so I'm trying to get there with cameras built out, and I'm using the smallest possible stands that can hold the weight, the smallest possible tripods that can hold the weight, so my set can be pretty efficient, pretty smooth. And again, it's all about time savings, weight savings, and being as efficient as you can on set. In a lot of scenarios, I am put in a position where I have to set up fast and set up by myself as a one-man band, and so I have to make sure that my gear is as efficient as it can be. So here are a couple of the frames. This is the A camera, and here we have false colors. I do try to make sure I'm using false color to help me expose, and this is pretty good lighting. Maybe a slight, we could go a little bit down on the highlights right there, but you can see that little rectangle getting some Rembrandt light. I do like a little bit of shadow on the shadow side, so you can see there's a slight little edge of shadow, but then the backlight is coming in and filling the back of the head and the shoulder, and keeping everything nice. But I do like a little bit of contrast, and unless the client requests a high key look, that's usually my preferred way of lighting, and that's usually achievable with one key light and a backlight, and in some cases I'll bring in a reflector for bounce. So those were the projects for this week. If you guys have any questions, if you have any comments as well, if you think I was lighting a little too hard or too high, let me know. I do tend to expose maybe one and a half stops over for the FX30 and the ZV-E10. S-Log3 does tend to like a little more light. That was the week. If you guys like this content, of course, go ahead and subscribe, and I will see you in the next vlog. The next vlog is going to be coming pretty soon.